Ready? Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 42 of Radio Europa. Tonight, I'm joined by Laura, who I know you've all missed. Welcome back, Laura.
Thank you. It's lovely to be back.
Did you have a good break?
Yeah, I did. It's gone too fast, and I was back at work today, and I just really couldn't be bothered. I went into thousands of emails, but yeah, I need to get back into the spirit and start following the news again. But yeah, it's good to be back. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess it's nice to have some time away from all this stuff every now and again, isn't it?
Yeah, you do get a little bit black-pilled, I think, and all the stories kind of pull you down, you know, about demographics and crime and rape and stuff. And it is nice just to go away for a few weeks and just switch off.
Yeah, well, when you put it like that, it's bloody miserable reading that stuff every day, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Right, so today we're going to be talking about, as the title suggests, the royal baby. Specifically, though, we're going to look at an article on CNN. It's kind of like the establishment response to this sort of thing. I mean, if you go on CNN's UK section, they've got 3 or 4 articles dedicated to talking about the race of the baby and all of this, you know, how wonderful it is and all of that nonsense. But the particular article that we want to look at is one by Bonnie Greer, who Americans and Brits alike will know well. She was once on an episode of Question Time here berating Nick Griffin about what an Indigenous Briton is and isn't, which was rather interesting. But she wrote an article for the CNN opinion page called "This Royal Baby is Nothing Less Than a Revolution." So wow, I don't know where to start with this. There's so much in this article which we could talk about. But you know, I mean, Laura, you've read the article. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, do you know, actually, it didn't bother me as much as I thought it would, because I know that everybody was talking about it in the Defend Europa chat and, you know, fuming about it. But I think I'm becoming so used to this from people like Bonnie Greer, Afua Hirsch, David Lammy, Sadiq Khan, and it's just constant. And I don't want to get to that position where I don't have a response to it anymore because I'm so used to it and it's just the norm. But all I see from Bonnie really in this article is resentment. And I think that's why it doesn't bother me that much, because these people are so keen to appropriate our genes and our culture that really we should kind of take it as a compliment. Do you know what I mean? Like, they are just jealous and they are just resentful of who we are. So I think that's the way that I've started to cope with it, because I was getting so blackpilled and I was getting so annoyed reading these articles about there's no such thing as a British person or we've always been a nation of immigrants. And the best way to handle it is just to think it's just resentment. They are just resentful of us.
Yeah, I mean, I got that impression too. It's funny you say that it didn't bother you so much, because actually, whilst some of the content of the article is kind of frustrating, it didn't register particularly strongly with myself either. I think you mentioned Afua Hirsch, and I think you know, her exploits over recent months in berating us on her weekly debate show on Sky News has kind of desensitized me to this crap. But I mean, it's interesting how, so Bonnie, I mean, the article, she's clearly got some notion of history, because she goes back to talk about the changing of the name of the royal house to Windsor, about King George V and his efforts to sort of repopularize the royal family. So of course she's got a notion of history, but then I mean, she goes on to say some quite sinister things about history, and we'll just sort of jump to the end first, I think, because this is the most sinister thing that I wanted to look at. But it was the final couple of lines in the article, which read like this: "Now Harry and Meghan's son can teach the British their own history and show them their future, and the future cannot be stopped." Sounds like a threat, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just cheeky, isn't it? Who does she think she is, saying that Harry and Meghan's son can teach us our own history? We don't need to be taught our own history. We're quite familiar with it. Thank you very much. But yeah, it just goes back to what I said about resentment, because it's like they're so desperate to rewrite who we are and our history and our glorious achievements and stuff. It's just constant. And I wonder how it must feel to be so attached to somebody else's culture and somebody else's history. But I'm very proud that I'm just part of my own. I live in England and I plan to live here forever in England. And I just think it is resentment. But that line is rather sinister, as you say. Harry and Meghan's son can teach the British their own history and show them their future. It's like something David Lammy would say, isn't it?
Yeah, and that last bit, and the future cannot be stopped. It's like, you will be replaced, Goy. It's rather creepy, actually. But I mean, speaking of the history and what we know of our own history, I mean, just up from there, where she says, here we go, she was told by scientists about the remains of a solitary skeleton belonging to an African woman in the 14th century. And then in the 16th century, the King's Royal Trumpeter, an African man. I mean, the argument is getting a bit like the magnificent range of restaurants, isn't it? Oh, we found one black person that lived here 500 years ago, therefore you have always been a nation of immigrants.
Yeah, so they always do this. They say stuff like there were remains of black skeletons in the Roman era. And it's like, well, first of all, they might have been slaves. And secondly, how many black skeletons did you find? Because if anyone wants to go and watch my video called The Truth, A History of Mass Immigration to Britain, up until World War II, so even when we had the invasions from the Vikings, the Romans, the Normans, Anglo-Saxons, we were always less than 5% foreign in Britain. So we've always been completely homogenous. So even though you might have found a black skeleton, it doesn't mean that we were multiracial or multicultural. We were still always European, and we were still always a homogenous nation. So they're very clever with the language that they use. They say things like, remains of black skeletons were found. And it's like, okay, well, how many black skeletons did you find and what percentage of the population did they make up? Because I'm pretty sure it's only like 1 or 2%. And in that video, I did break it down. So the demographics right from the Roman invasion up until today and the future. And we've always been homogenous. So it's always just been a couple of percentage of the population that's been foreign. Even in London during the 1700s, when we became increasingly involved in the slave trade, we were still homogenous. And it's like they're trying to go back and rewrite history and saying we've always been a nation of immigrants and stuff, but it's just crap. And actually, in this article by CNN, the quite near the start, they're talking about how the royal family was German. That's another one that they do, isn't it? Where they're like, well, your royal family is German, you know, you're multicultural anyway. Well, as English people, we're Germanic people anyway, so that doesn't mean anything. It's other Europeans. It's not the same as this mass immigration from the third world that we're experiencing today. But yeah, I just think you've just got to always question what they say, because they'll say stuff like we found a black skeleton, or, you know, the royal family was German, but it never means what they're insinuating that it does mean.
Yeah, you're right. And the argument about the royal family being German is kind of frustrating because, you know, it's a point that people don't caveat it with, which is, well, okay, you're talking about one group of Northwest Europeans and another group of Northwest Europeans who look pretty similar. They speak similar languages. So, you know, it's not a very good argument on their part. But the problem is, and on a serious point, that the average person reading this who isn't involved in politics and doesn't think about this, I kind of worry that they read that and they believe it and they think, oh, well, you know, we can't complain then. And Abdul and Jamal are just as British as me because of this black man in the 1500s. So, I mean, I don't know what you think about that, but I do worry that people don't see through the BS.
Well, it's like a mainstream talking point, because I don't get in Twitter arguments anymore. I used to argue on Twitter all the time, but they regurgitate these same talking points over and over again. And that's one that they say, you know, we've always been a nation of immigrants, black skeletons during the Romans, the royal family are German. And you know what they're going to say before they say it. And it's just, I'm not sure how much of it they actually believe themselves, or if they're NPCs, aren't they? They're just saying what they've been programmed to say. But I hope that the people watching can work out themselves that it's not accurate. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know, to be honest, because I think one of the problems in this country, and I know it's similar in other European countries, but one of the problems here is that, firstly, that we've become dumbed down as a nation, but secondly, that we're not really taught the accurate version of our own history in school. I mean, I know I was an avid history student at school. It was my favorite lesson. I got good grades, but it was only when I left school and left college and stopped studying history under the establishment syllabus and started reading what I wanted to read that I actually learned anything real about this country. So I went through, you know, all those years of school loving history, but knowing nothing about my own history. So it does bother me in that way.
Yeah, I was the same, and I absolutely loved history at school, but it was just, there was so much that I've learned now as an adult that I now know from my history lessons when I did GCSE history at school that it just wasn't true. I mean, for a start, we watched Schindler's List in history lessons like it was, I mean, it's based on a fiction book, isn't it? I'm not saying that the whole film is false, but for a film like that to be portrayed as the truth when a lot of it is just based on a fiction book in history lessons, that's pretty scary.
Yeah, it is, and I think they do that a lot. And the only thing I remember about learning about this country in history was right back in it would have been when I was about 8 or 9 years old. So I can barely remember it, but we did a couple of history lessons on the Anglo-Saxons, and all I remember is being told, oh, they were uncivilized barbarians and they ate bread that wasn't didn't have yeast in it. So that was literally the extent of what we learned. So, and I worry, bringing it back to the topic, I worry that people in this country, without a good enough understanding of their own history, don't have the mental tools with which to rebut what they're reading in these articles.
Yeah, well, I would, if we ever get an ethno state, I would absolutely love to be in charge of education in Britain, because I'd teach them the truth about the British Empire as well, and how it's something to be proud of. I mean, there's parts of it that I disagree with. I don't agree with us exporting all our trades, abroad, and people losing their jobs in Britain and things like that. But people think that when it comes to the British Empire, that we just went around raping and killing people and left nothing there, in return. Like, we didn't pull the countries out of however many hundreds of years behind us they were into the future. We spread science and healthcare and technological advancements and democracy and the rule of law across the globe to a quarter of the globe. And a lot of the countries were in so much more of a better state when we left them. And in fact, when we left many countries, they collapsed again. And people don't know that. They only know the negative sides of the British Empire. I think that we should teach the truth about that at school as well. And also when it comes to slavery, white people only did what all the other races have already done when it comes to slavery. I mean, black people were selling slaves. A lot of Jewish people were involved in the slave industry. We actually did it more humanely than everybody else. And then we were the ones who stopped it. But they don't teach that at all. It's just, bad whiteys that enslaved people.
Yeah, and a point that people should really know about that as well is that it cost the British Empire, which was obviously the biggest economy the world had ever known at the time, 80% of its GDP to end the slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade, and slavery in its territory. So, not only were we involved in ending the slave trade, but it was to great expense to our own, to the economy of our ancestors, and of course the ordinary British people who. People like Bonnie Greer would say have always been privileged because they're white. They paid the price and they had to fork up the taxes, which funded the end of slavery. So, I think that not only are people like Bonnie Greer kind of ungrateful, but also it's sad that people don't know, like you say, the reality of the situation and of history.
Yeah, they are completely ungrateful. I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this on YouTube. Millennial Woes wrote a tweet about David Lammy the other day, and it was something like, if it wasn't for slavery and colonialism, then he'd still be living next to a mud hut with a tooth through his nose or something like that. And that's reality. Like, these people are so ungrateful. Another thing that gets me as well is with Empire Windrush and the Windrush generation that came up to Britain in 1948 and afterwards. Why, if we were so bad when it comes to slavery, then why did they run towards our country? Like, why did they run to live in the country with the evil slavers that were so awful with them? It just doesn't make sense. And they apparently came to rebuild our country after World War II, which is also just absolute crap. It really does annoy me. And also, if you look at slavery in America, because it was a rich man's game, only a small percentage of white people actually had slaves. Black people had slaves as well, and per capita, because there were free black people during that that time in America, per capita, more black people actually had slaves. So it's just, we get blamed for everything. I mean, there was also the Islamic conquests in Europe where white women were raped and made into slaves as well. No one talks about that. It's white people all the time that get blamed.
Yeah, and you can feel that coming through in Bonnie Greer's article, can't you? That you can almost feel this kind of, there's an undercurrent of, this is us getting revenge. Now you've got, I mean, she partway down, she refers to the Duchess of Sussex. I hate calling her that, but Meghan Markle. She refers to her as having a homegirl manner, and that she recognizes her, that she's from, the black places in America. And it's almost like, us African Americans have had it tough, but now we're getting our own back on Whitey by putting a sister in the palace. you know.
Yeah, I mean, if we're so bad, just why don't they all just go back to Africa? If we're so bad and so racist, just go back to Africa and see how you do without us.
Well, exactly. But this is the problem with the what's going on in the royal family at the moment is the base. What I sense from it is the basic undercurrent behind all of this is no, they want to be here. They want to take our institutions, or rather, they want to at least insert themselves in it, and whether we like it or not, and we don't get a choice. And that's very much the vibe that's coming off this piece.
Yeah, they want to change everything that we've done, don't they? It's like with films as well, with like superhero films. The whole attention that Black Panther got because they were like, finally a superhero film with black people. I just think, go make your own films, or go and make your own TV shows, or go start your own government or something. Why do we always have to include you in ours? Like, why can't you just go and do your own thing and be proud of that? Why do you always have to appropriate our things?
Yeah, it is sad, and I think it goes back to what you say. If they hate us so much, then why are they here? But also, it's kind of, there's a double standard really, because on the one hand, we're the most evil people on earth, but then on the other hand, they are very keen to be in our institutions. That baffles me. But so here's a question. This is totally not quite to do with the royal baby, but it is to do with the Harry and Meghan. I speak to a friend about this a lot, and we agree on this. And I want to know what you think. Do you think that there's an element of this marriage and this family being kind of arranged as a way to make the royal family popular with ethnic minorities in the coming decades?
I mean, I guess it's possible. Do you know who introduced them?
Oh, I know it was a Jewish person.
It was a Jewish woman, wasn't it?
Yeah. Imagine my shock.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? Who knows who is behind the scenes doing these things? Pulling strings and trying to increase diversity everywhere. But I just really don't like Meghan Markle, and I know what you're all thinking. It's not because she's half black. I just genuinely do not like her. From the very first moment that she did her first interview with Harry, when they announced the engagement, she was just they were sat on a sofa and Harry just couldn't get a word into the conversation, and she was just mouthing off and being really like cocky and confident. And I remember when William and Kate announced their engagement, Kate was sat there kind of like all demure and ladylike and feminine. And then the contrast between Kate and Meghan Markle, I know that the media are going mad because people are pitting them off against each other, but I really like Kate and I really don't like Meghan. She's a hardcore feminist. All of the campaigns that she's taken a shine to are things like Windrush and Grenfell Tower and things like that. So it's all race orientated. You can never know what to believe in the mainstream media or not, but apparently she's raising her child gender neutral, and she's going to raise her child as a feminist, and she wants to do all this stuff that's just completely against tradition. She was saying that she wants to take 3 months off work after giving birth, and she doesn't want the child to be pushed into the spotlight. And it's like, well, you're part of the royal family. That's your duty. Like when Kate gave birth and she went and had a photo afterwards.
Yeah.
And I did feel a bit sorry for her because it must be pretty hard giving birth and then having to do your hair and makeup and go and have your photo taken and stuff like that. But that's your duty as a member of the royal family. And Meghan's just rejecting all our traditions and just saying, I'm not doing this and I'm doing that. And I just think, why did you even get involved in the royal family if you're not willing to carry out the traditions? She's obviously just trying to revamp it and change it. And I really don't like her.
But I think you've hit the nail on the head there, because she's come in and the contrast between her and Catherine is remarkable. But Meghan has come in with a sense of entitlement. She's, which people from Hollywood tend to have. She's a divorcee, film star, whatever. And she has no concept of duty. It's all about entitlement. It's all, I want it this way and it's not going to be that way, and you're not going to do this and we are going to do this. But there's no sense of, well, as a royal, for the honor of being a royal that's bestowed on me, I have a duty to do X, Y, and Z. There's no evidence that she appreciates that there is a duty involved with her position.
Yeah, that's her duty. And she's like, That's your full-time job. I mean, she could be working in Sainsbury's doing 15-hour shifts, or scraping her money together trying to afford food. She has it so easy. She has this beautiful house and all these clothes and makeup. She's never going to struggle for the rest of her life. All she has to do is carry out these duties and go to these ceremonies that are expected of her. And I'm sure her life is pretty easy apart from that. And she's just refusing to do it, and she's just rejecting all our traditions, and she just annoys me so much.
Yeah, I got to admit, I dislike her, and I think I think there's a lot of people who are kind of monarchists, and they're sort of pretending to like her because, they're worried that if they say they don't like the new American mixed race princess, they'll be a racist or something. But so I think I don't think she's particularly popular amongst the monarchist public.
Yeah, I'm not sure about, with that crowd, but I know that in Britain she's not popular at all because there's lots. Didn't the royal family say something about they would be blocking people on social media if they abused? They're trying to say that it's Kate and Meghan, and they're saying that Kate and Meghan are getting all this abuse on social media, but it's just Meghan. I've not seen anyone say anything bad about Kate at all. But people just don't like Meghan. And in Yorkshire, it's a very patriotic city, and there's always Union Jacks everywhere. And when Kate and William announced their engagement and had their babies, there were photographs everywhere and big celebrations and parties and stuff. And I've not even seen anything for Meghan and Harry. I just don't think she's popular at all.
No, and I remember that as well. And I think back when William and Catherine got married, and there was I went to a party for it, and there was a real sense of whether you were engaged in that kind of thing or not, or whether you liked the monarchy or not, there was still quite a sense of jubilation, a national jubilation. Whereas with Meghan, it's kind of like, oh, really? We've got to put up with this on the news again. But yeah, I mean, I've noticed that since they got married, the royal family not the royal family necessarily, but the media has been very quick to paint anybody that criticizes Meghan Markle as racist. Any criticism of her, whether you bring into the table that she's not white or not, is racist. And that's I mean, we can expect this with the child as well, even though it's only a quarter black or whatever. We're gonna have a generation of you can't say this because of the royal child, the Sean Windsor or whatever.
Yeah, Tyrone.
Lil Kang.
Yeah, I mean, it's only going to be a quarter black, and they're making out like it's fully sub-Saharan African, aren't they? The baby's going to be a quarter. Well, it's born now. Is a quarter black, so it's not. I mean, we've not seen. Have we seen any photos? I've not seen any, but I imagine that the skin's going to be pretty light anyway. So yeah, it's not even really African. It's like 25%. But yeah, they're grabbing hold of it and running with it, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to dine out on this for years. But like you said, in reality, to look at. It depends what the hair's like, but to look at, this kid's not going to be. He's not going to stand out as being not white,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's another article on CNN actually, in the UK section, which is, where is it? Don't use royal baby to trot out a dangerous myth, and it's basically people, somebody warning against. It's hard to understand what the motive is here, but it's basically says, let's not turn this child into another great mixed race hope. But then the implication there is that hang on a sec. Sorry about that. There was a video on the article. It started playing in my ears when I was looking at it. But it's on screen now. But they kind of betray the fact that there is a great mixed race hope. So this is the hope of this people like CNN writers is that we have this utopian or dystopian mixed race future, and that's kind of irritating.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the screen now. Yeah. So we've seen this story before. A mixed race person is elevated to a position of prominence. They're touted as proof of racial progress, part of a brown new world in which racism will inevitably collapse in the future because there will be so many interracial relationships. What a strange article. Don't you think that's really... I find that really spooky and crazy. By the way, I wrote a tweet the other day saying that I only if I was single, I only date white guys and I only date within my racial group. And I got attacked by so many Black American women calling me a white supremacist and a racist and all sorts of stuff. And I don't know why they think that they can go around policing what other people do and forcing people to be attracted to people that they're not attracted to do things that they're not comfortable with. It's perfectly normal and natural to only want to date your own race. And if you actually look at the figures from Britain, the white British are the least likely group to race mix in the whole of Britain, and only 4% of the white British who are in relationships are in relationships with non-white British people. So some of them are even other white people in that 4%, but they're trying to force it, aren't they? They're trying to force race mixing and attacking people who say that they don't want to.
But this is the issue, though, isn't it, with what CNN are saying here? Because, like you said, the white British people in this country are the least likely to race mix. But we know that there is an agenda to change that, of course, and that's kind of what the article on CNN, it betrays what the chattering class thinks, which is that the future is brown, and that one way or another we need to be forced to race mix. And it's like a very sinister kind. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it does feel like a very sinister, we didn't get you this time, but we'll get you next time kind of thing.
Yeah, but it is working, because if you look at studies that say, would you date somebody outside of your race? Over time, people are more likely to say yes, and more and more people are saying yes. But then if you actually look at the figures, it's not changing. So people are kind of succumb to social pressure, and they're saying, yes, I would date outside my race, but they're not replicating that in their real lives. And there was a huge study done by OkCupid, I don't know if you saw it, where they looked at 1 million dating profiles, and they've done the test every single year. And the number doesn't change. It's only a couple of percentage of people that are white that date outside of their ethnic group. But like I said, over time, people are saying more likely to say that they would do it. So obviously people think that society expects them to do that. So they're saying that they would, even though they actually wouldn't.
Yeah, I hope that, to be honest, I hope that people are just saying it because they think they have to not appear racist, because it would be a travesty if suddenly large portions of the country thought that, they actively sought out that kind of relationship. That, that would be frustrating. But I do think that a lot of it is just people, they don't want to appear racist.
Yeah, I mean, we just need to, us at Defend Europa and the guys in the chat who are listening along now, we just need to be brave enough to say that I only want to date my own racial group. And that's a perfectly natural, normal thing to do. People want their children to look like them. They want to be able to recognise their kids. And you're attracted to similar features, I think, people who look like you. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And even if you are attracted to other races, if you just make a conscious decision and say, I only want to date within my racial group because I don't want my genetics to die, that's fine too. You're allowed to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. And I don't know why people feel like they have to say something that they don't want to do just to please society. Just don't do it. We all need to lead by example, and we all just need to say, I don't want to race mix. You can do what you want to do, but I don't want to do it. And then hopefully other people will start to become used to hearing people say that, and they'll be brave enough to say it too.
Yeah, I think so. And to be honest, people need to recognize that this is an issue of conscience. It's freedom of conscience, which is sacrosanct. You can't not have freedom of conscience. So if you are saying these things just to appear respectable in polite society, it is sad, and it shows that you don't have the freedom of your own mind, which is really bad. But as well, on your comment of people like to date people that look like them, I think that's true. And I remember reading a scientific study about this, that not only do people want to date people that look like them, but they also are subconsciously attracted to people who are of a similar level of attractiveness to themselves. And to my mind, that would be very difficult to measure between races, because it's kind of like an apple and a pear. Well, they're both fruit, but they're incomparable, really. And it's the same with that. So I don't believe that there's a natural psychological mechanism that encourages one to race mix. I don't think it's part of our nature.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at advertising, I'm sure everyone who's listening to this show and you are familiar with the overrepresentation of the black African male with the blonde woman in advertising, and you just see it again and again and again. And like I said, it's only a couple of percentage of white British people that do actually date outside their ethnic group. But if you looked at the adverts, you'd think that everybody were doing it, wouldn't you? So it's programming in a way, because people start to think that that's the norm and that everybody's doing that. And do you know, I've said this before, but my grandma's actually picked up on the race mixing agenda in the adverts. And last time I was round, she was like, they want to normalise it, don't they? So that everybody just thinks that everybody's race mixing, when in reality they're not. But I think it does work. I think people subconsciously remember what they've seen on the adverts, and then they think that that's the norm. But yeah, I mean, what can you do about it? These are multi-billion. They lose money as well from doing it, because obviously people like to buy things from somebody that they recognise on an advert, and some companies are losing money, but they're still doing it anyway because the message that they're getting out there is more important than profits.
Yeah, it's like that woke capitalism thing where they think that by doing a sort of, by making a social point, a progressive point, that they're going to entice the next generation of anti-capitalists to buy their products. It's very, very ironic. But I think that just the last point I want to come to on this article is related to what we were just saying about, people wanting to date people that look like them. On the original Bonnie Greer article, there's a line, I'm just going to find it, about how British people see themselves. Here we go. So, the royal family became a mirror of what the British look at when they want to see a conventional picture of themselves. The Duchess of Sussex and baby Sussex shatter that mirror into pieces. So it's kind of like what you were saying about advertising, that people are, the agenda is clear, which is we can't win this way, so we're going to change how you see yourselves. And I think it's part of a broader, not a conspiracy, but it's part of a broader trend towards the British people and European people generally being led to believe that this is the face of their nation, when it's not true.
Yeah, so it's just, they're coming in all different directions, aren't they? So it's advertising, it's the royal family, it's these diversity quotas, people on TV, they want diversity quotas in the government. And yeah, they really are just trying to make it out like it's the norm. They're rewriting all our history. They're teaching kids stuff in school about there's no such thing as a true Brit. I know we've spoke about the BBC Teach videos before. Yeah, they're just coming in at every angle really, and making it out like it's the norm when it's not. But then you can't say anything about it because they have all these crazy hate speech laws that protect people from being criticised because of their race or whatever. What are the words? If you're unfriendly or you show hostility towards somebody based on their race, you only have to point something out, and it's a hate crime in Britain. So it's scary times at the moment.
Yeah, it is quite crazy. I mean, just as we've been discussing this, sort of before I say anything, I'm kind of quickly checking myself in my head. Is that acceptable in today's honk honk clown world standard? And that's not a nice place to be. I don't think it's not a good place for a society to be when, not only do you have this foisted upon you, but you can't even you're afraid to question it or criticize it because there are those laws that exist which prevent it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think we've talked about this a lot, and I hope the people in the chat are going to go and look at the article and see what they think, and also the links that Laura's posted. You guys might want to check those out, especially the video that I'm going to watch that, actually, the video you referenced earlier on. I haven't seen it yet.
Thanks.
Sorry, I letting the side down. But I guess somebody in the chat posted a funny question about, let me just find it. Visionary companion, do you think Harry has any real intention of being monogamous? Well, what do you think?
I'm not. I mean, there seems to be a lot of cheating and affairs going on in the royal family, doesn't there? And there always has been, really, even if we go back to Charles and Diana. So I'm not sure. I mean, I don't want to sound kind of negative, but I I don't like Meghan, so I don't want her to be part of our royal family. So I kind of hope it doesn't last. I'm sorry if that's really bitchy, but that's the truth. I think you're muted if you're talking, William. Oh, I think William's been disconnected. Can you guys in the chat? Oh, hey.
I'm
back. Welcome back.
I'm very sorry about that. Technology problems my end, but sorry if I missed anything.
No, I just said that I don't like Meghan, so I don't want her to be part of the royal family.
Well, yeah, I echo those sentiments. So it's I mean, they're talking about posting Harry and Meghan to some sub-Saharan African country to advance their causes or whatever. I mean, that would be preferable, I think.
Yeah, they were saying something like William's obviously the heir to the throne and Harry won't be, so he has to find his niche. So he's doing all this charity work in Africa and stuff, and yeah, I'm sure that suits him fine.
Well, unfortunately I've had to switch to a different device, so I can't see the comments in the chat. So I don't know if there's anything we need to pick up or...
No, not really. Just people are saying that you have boomer tech. People saying that the relationship won't last. BT said that he is Spanish and I speak too fast. So I'm really sorry about that, BT. That's just the Yorkshire accent. We just squashed like 5 words into one word. But yeah, I think it's probably maybe a good time to wrap it up. There's only 2 of us tonight, so a bit of a shorter show.
Yeah, okay then. All right, so I guess we'll wrap up here then. Before we do, I just want to say to our listeners, I know it's been a relaxed affair, but I will repeat as usual, please hit like and subscribe because it really helps us. And if you do want to help us further with a small donation or anything like that to help us continue with what we do, then the links are in the description below. All that's left to say, I suppose, is thanks for listening, everybody, and thanks for joining us tonight, Laura.
No problem. Yeah, it's good to be back. And to everybody who's listening, if you have a spare 30 seconds after the stream, if you could leave us a comment underneath the YouTube video, it really helps with our engagement.
Yeah, please do that. It's helpful. So yeah, well, thanks for listening, everybody, and thanks for your comments afterwards. Good night.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.